The winter sun cast long shadows across the dusty trails of Willow Creek as Zara Matthews clutched her infant daughter closer to her chest, tears streaming down her dirt-streaked face. Her sobs echoed through the canyon, mingling with the plaintive cries of her 3-month-old baby, the last remnant of a life that had crumbled like the dry Texas soil beneath her worn boots. Nebraska Territory, 1868. The unforgiving landscape stretched before Zara like an endless purgatory as she slumped against the rough bark of a cottonwood tree. Her once fine dress, now tattered and soiled from days of travel, hung loosely on her frame. The meager contents of her carpetbag, a spare dress, a silver hairbrush that had been her mother's, and a few dollars wrapped in a handkerchief were all that remained of her former life in St. Louis. "Hush now, Ellie," she whispered, bouncing the fussing infant gently. "Mama's going to figure something out." But the words rang hollow even to her own ears. What could she possibly figure out? Her husband was dead, her home seized by creditors, and the promised sanctuary of her cousin's homestead had turned out to be nothing but an abandoned shack. Desperation clawed at her throat as surely as thirst. The sound of approaching hoofbeats startled her from her misery. Instinctively, Zara pressed herself closer to the tree, clutching Ellie protectively to her chest. Travelers in these parts weren't always friendly, especially to a woman alone. A tall figure on horseback emerged from around the bend, silhouetted against the setting sun. A cowboy, by the look of his wide-brimmed hat and the easy way he sat in the saddle. His horse, a magnificent chestnut stallion, slowed as the rider caught sight of Zara and her baby. For a moment, they regarded each other in silence, the disheveled young mother with fear in her eyes and the broad-shouldered stranger whose face she couldn't quite make out against the fading light. "Madam." His voice was deep but gentle, carrying a hint of concern that cut through Zara's fear. "Are you hurt?" "No," she managed, though another sob betrayed her. We're just lost." The cowboy dismounted in one fluid motion, his spurs jingling softly as his boots hit the ground. As he approached, Zara could finally see his face weathered by sun and wind, but kind, with eyes the color of a summer sky and a strong jawline softened by the hint of a smile. "Name's Noah Reid," he said, stopping a respectful distance away. "I run the Triple R Ranch about 5 miles east of here." Zara said nothing, still wary despite his unthreatening demeanor. Ellie's cries grew more insistent, her tiny face reddening with the effort. Noah's expression softened further as he looked at the distressed infant. "Your little one sounds mighty hungry." Zara nodded, fresh tears spilling down her cheeks. "I haven't been able to. I haven't eaten properly in days, so my milk." She trailed off, embarrassment coloring her cheeks. Without hesitation, Noah reached into his saddlebag and pulled out a canteen and a bundle wrapped in cloth. "Water and some jerky. Not much of a meal, but it might help." Zara accepted the offerings with trembling hands, her pride no match for her desperation. "Thank you." As she drank gratefully from the canteen, Noah studied the exhausted woman and her baby. She was young, maybe 22 or 23, with auburn hair escaping from a once neat bun. Despite the dirt and fatigue, there was a quiet dignity about her that spoke of better circumstances than these. "What brings you out here alone, if you don't mind my asking?" Noah inquired, his tone conversational but his eyes sharp and assessing. Between sips of water and small bites of jerky, Zara told him her story of her husband's gambling debts and sudden death from fever, of the creditors who'd taken everything, of her journey west to find family who were no longer there. "I didn't know what else to do," she finished, her voice barely above a whisper. "I can't go back, and I can't." Ellie began to wail again, and Zara's composure finally shattered completely. Noah crouched down, his expression grave but determined. "Let me hold you both," he said softly, opening his arms in an offer of comfort that transcended the boundaries between strangers. For a moment, Zara hesitated, years of proper upbringing warring with the raw human need for compassion. Then, with a small sob, she allowed herself to be drawn into Noah's strong embrace, Ellie cradled between them. "It's going to be all right," Noah murmured, one hand gently supporting her back while the other rested lightly on Ellie's bundled form. I've got a place where you can rest, get your strength back. My housekeeper, Mrs. Finley, she's raised 5 children of her own. She'll know how to help with the little one." Zara pulled back slightly, searching his face for any sign of deception or ill intent. "Why would you help us?" "You don't know me." Noah's smile was warm, reaching all the way to his eyes. "Out here, madam, we look after each other. It's the only way to survive." He paused, then added more softly, "And I know what it is to be alone in this world." Something in his words, or perhaps in the honest openness of his gaze, convinced Zara to trust him. She nodded, shifting Ellie in her arms as Noah helped her to her feet. "Can you ride?" he asked, eyeing her worn condition doubtfully. "I can," Zara affirmed, summoning what remained of her strength. "I grew up riding in Virginia." Noah looked impressed. "Virginia, is it? You're a long way from home, Mrs. Matthews, Zara Matthews, and this is a leaner Ellie." "Well, Mrs. Matthews," Noah said, gathering up her meager possessions and securing them to his saddle. "Let's get you and Miss Ellie somewhere safe before nightfall." With gentle hands, he helped Zara mount his horse, then passed Ellie up to her before swinging up behind them. As his arms reached around to take the reins, creating a secure circle around mother and child, Zara felt something she hadn't experienced in months, a flicker of hope. The chestnut stallion set off at an easy walk, carrying its triple burden toward the Triple R Ranch and whatever future awaited them there. The journey to Noah's ranch passed in relative silence, with Zara focused on keeping Ellie calm and Noah attentive to the trail ahead. As they crested a small rise, the Triple R spread out before them a substantial main house with a wide porch, a large barn, bunkhouse, and various outbuildings, all nestled in a valley protected by low hills. "It's beautiful," Zara murmured, taking in the sight of the well-maintained property. "Been in my family for 3 generations," Noah replied, a note of pride in his voice. "My grandfather claimed this land back in '35, built it up from nothing but prairie grass and determination." As they approached, a stout woman with gray streaked hair emerged from the main house, wiping her hands on an apron. Her expression shifted from curiosity to concern as she noticed Zara and the baby. "Mrs. Finley," Noah called as they reached the yard, "we have guests in need of some care." The woman, clearly the housekeeper Noah had mentioned, hurried forward as Noah dismounted and helped Zara down from the horse. "Land sakes, Mr. Reid, where did you find these poor souls?" Mrs. Finley exclaimed, her keen eyes taking in Zara's bedraggled appearance and Ellie's fretful state. "By Cottonwood Creek," Noah answered, steadying Zara as her legs threatened to buckle beneath her. "Mrs. Matthews and her daughter need food, rest, and whatever else you can provide." Mrs. Finley's efficient hands were already reaching for Ellie. "Give me this little mite. I'll have her settled in no time." To Zara, she added more gently, "Don't you worry, dear. I've nursed more babies than I can count. She'll be fine while you get yourself sorted." Reluctantly, Zara relinquished her daughter to the older woman's capable arms. "She hasn't been feeding well." "I haven't had enough milk." "We've got goat's milk that'll do for now," Mrs. Finley assured her. "Come along inside, both of you. Supper's nearly ready and there's hot water for washing up." The interior of the ranch house was surprisingly refined for a bachelor's dwelling, solid furniture polished to a shine, colorful quilts draped over chairs, and the delicious aroma of cooking food permeating the air. Zara felt a wave of dizziness as the warmth and safety of the place washed over her. Noah caught her elbow as she swayed. "Easy now. Let's get you sitting down." He guided her to a comfortable chair by the hearth, where a fire crackled cheerfully. Mrs. Finley had already disappeared with Ellie, presumably to the kitchen where she could attend to the infant's needs. "I don't know how to thank you," Zara said, overwhelmed by the kindness being shown to her. Noah shook his head. "No need for thanks. It's what any decent person would do." He hesitated, then added, "You're welcome to stay as long as you need to. The ranch is busy this time of year with winter preparations, but we've plenty of room." Zara's pride made a brief resurgence. "I can't accept charity indefinitely. Once I'm on my feet, I'll find work, pay you back somehow." A small smile played at the corner of Noah's mouth. "We can discuss that later. For now, just rest." Mrs. Finley returned with Ellie, who was contentedly sucking on a cloth dipped in milk. "This one's going to be just fine," she announced. "Now, Mrs. Matthews, there's a bath drawn in the back room and some clean clothes laid out. They belong to Mr. Reid's sister, but she won't mind you borrowing them until we can wash yours." "I didn't know you had a sister," Zara said to Noah, suddenly curious about the man who had rescued her. A shadow passed over his face. Rebecca died of scarlet fever 2 years ago. Her husband followed 6 months later, riding accident. "I'm so sorry," Zara whispered, understanding all too well the pain of loss. Noah nodded acknowledgement, then straightened. "I'll leave you ladies to it. Need to see to the horse and let the men know we have guests." After he left, Mrs. Finley handed Ellie back to Zara. "He's a good man, Mr. Reid. Best I've ever worked for. Lost too much, too young, but it never hardened his heart." Zara glanced toward the door through which Noah had departed. "How did he come to be alone here?" Mrs. Finley sighed, settling into a nearby chair. "His parents died when he was just 20. Wagon accident on the way back from Denver. Then Rebecca and her husband. The ranch keeps him busy, but it's a lonely life for a man of 32. The information settled in Zara's mind as she cradled Ellie, who was now dozing peacefully. "He mentioned men, hired hands. Ranch this size needs at least a dozen cowboys, especially with winter coming on. Good workers, most of them. They bunk in the outbuilding, though a few of the older ones have cabins nearby." Mrs. Finley rose, gesturing for Zara to follow. "Come now, that bath water's getting cold, and you look ready to drop." The bath was heavenly, the first real washing Zara had managed in over a week. The borrowed dress, a simple calico in a soft blue, was slightly too large but clean and whole. By the time she emerged, with her hair combed and braided, and Ellie changed into a makeshift gown fashioned from one of Noah's sister's cotton slips, she felt almost human again. Supper was a simple but hearty affair of beef stew, fresh bread, and apple pie. Noah returned from the barn to join them, and Zara noticed he'd also taken the time to clean up, his dark hair still damp and his face freshly shaved. He wore a clean shirt under his vest, and there was something about the way he carefully folded his napkin that spoke of good upbringing beneath the rugged exterior. Conversation flowed easily as they ate, with Mrs. Finley doing most of the talking. She had a gift for making Zara feel welcome without pressing for more details than she was ready to give. Noah was quieter, but his attention never wavered from his guests, ensuring Zara's plate and cup were always full. After the meal, when Ellie began to fuss again, Mrs. Finley showed Zara to a comfortable bedroom with a small adjoining space that had been hastily converted into a nursery, complete with a cradle that the housekeeper explained had been Noah's own as a baby. "Mr. Reid brought it down from the attic himself while you were bathing, Mrs. Finley told her with a meaningful look. Left alone with Ellie, Zara sat on the edge of the bed, overwhelmed by the day's events. From the depths of despair to this unexpected sanctuary, all because a kind stranger had stopped on the trail. As she laid Ellie in the cradle, the baby's tiny hand curled around her finger, and Zara felt a surge of determination. Somehow she would make a new life for them both. Morning brought the sounds of a working ranch horses nickering, men calling to each other, the distant lowing of cattle. Zara woke feeling more rested than she had in weeks, despite Ellie's midnight feeding. The goat's milk and Mrs. Finley's nurturing had already improved the baby's disposition, and as Zara dressed in her own clothes now washed and mended, she found herself humming softly. Downstairs, she found Noah at the kitchen table, poring over what appeared to be account books while Mrs. Finley bustled about preparing breakfast. "Good morning," Zara said, suddenly shy in the light of day. Noah looked up, and something in his expression, a moment of genuine pleasure at the sight of her, warmed Zara from within. "Mrs. Matthews," he greeted her, rising from his chair, "you're looking much better today." "I feel better, thanks to your hospitality." She shifted Ellie in her arms. "We both do." Mrs. Finley appeared with a cup of coffee for Zara. "Sit down, dear, breakfast is almost ready. How did you sleep?" "Wonderfully," Zara admitted, taking a seat across from Noah. "I can't remember the last time I felt so safe." A shadow crossed Noah's face at her words, a flicker of anger at whatever circumstances had left this young woman and her child so vulnerable. But he masked it quickly, turning the conversation to practical matters. "I've been thinking about what you said last night, about not wanting charity," he began carefully. "The ranch could use some help with the household accounts and correspondence. Mrs. Finley is an excellent housekeeper, but she'd be the first to admit that paperwork isn't her strong suit, Mrs. Finley harumphed good-naturedly as she set plates of eggs and bacon before them. "That's putting it mildly. Numbers make my head spin." Zara looked between them, understanding dawning. "Are you offering me a job, Mr. Reid? If you're interested," Noah replied, his blue eyes steady on hers. "You mentioned you were educated in Virginia. I assume that included figures and letters." "Yes," Zara nodded, a spark of excitement kindling within her. "I was considered quite proficient in mathematics and composition. My father insisted on a thorough education, even for his daughters." "Then it's settled," Noah said with a smile that transformed his serious face. "You can start whenever you feel ready. The pay isn't much, but it includes room and board for you and Ellie." Zara felt tears prick at her eyes, tears of relief and gratitude. "I don't know what to say." "Say yes, Mrs. Finley urged, placing a gentle hand on Zara's shoulder. "It would be a blessing to have another woman around the place, especially one with a baby. Too much male company isn't good for anybody." Laughing through her tears, Zara nodded. "Yes then, thank you, Mr. Reid." "Noah," he corrected her. "If you're going to be living and working here, I think we can dispense with formalities." "Noah," Zara repeated, testing the name on her tongue. It felt right somehow, strong and straightforward like the man himself. After breakfast, Noah gave Zara a tour of the ranch, showing her the office where she would work and introducing her to some of the hands who were preparing for the day's tasks. The men were respectful, tipping their hats to Mrs. Matthews and admiring baby Ellie with gruff compliments that made Zara smile. One older cowboy named Frank, who Noah explained was his foreman, studied Zara with shrewd eyes before declaring, "Good to have you here, madam. Boss could use someone to keep him honest about those figures. He's too generous for his own good sometimes." Noah looked embarrassed. "That's enough, Frank. Don't go giving Mrs. Matthews the wrong impression." "Just stating facts," Frank replied with a wink at Zara before returning to his work. As they walked back toward the house, Ellie secure in Zara's arms, Noah explained more about the ranch operations, the cattle that were their main business, the horses he bred as a sideline. The crops they grew primarily to feed the livestock, but also to sell in town when harvests were good. "It's impressive," Zara said sincerely. "You've built something remarkable here." "My family built it," Noah corrected her. "I'm just trying not to let it fall apart." There was something in his tone, a hint of doubt or perhaps loneliness that tugged at Zara's heart. Before she could respond, however, they were interrupted by the arrival of a wagon driven by a man in a suit, with a woman in fashionable dress beside him. "The Andersons," Noah muttered, his posture stiffening slightly. "Nathaniel owns the bank in town. His wife, Vivian, is persistent." The couple pulled up beside them, and Zara immediately sensed tension as the woman's gaze flicked between her and Noah with undisguised curiosity. "Noah," Vivian Anderson called out, her voice artificially bright, "we were just coming to invite you to dinner next Saturday. The Millers will be there, and their daughter has just returned from finishing school in Boston." Her eyes settled on Zara and Ellie with barely concealed disapproval. "I see you have company." Noah's arm moved slightly, as if instinctively positioning himself between Zara and the newcomers. "Nathaniel, Vivian, this is Mrs. Zara Matthews and her daughter Alina. Mrs. Matthews will be helping with the ranch accounts." Nathaniel Anderson, a portly man with shrewd eyes similar to his wife's, nodded politely. "Mrs. Matthews, welcome to Willow Creek. A widow, are you?" Vivian asked directly, her gaze lingering on Zara's simple attire. "Yes," Zara replied, lifting her chin slightly. "My husband passed away 3 months ago in St. Louis." "How unfortunate," Vivian murmured, though her tone suggested she found Zara's presence at the Triple R more unfortunate than her widowhood. "And now you're working for Noah." "Mrs. Matthews has excellent qualifications," Noah stated firmly, his tone brooking no argument. "The ranch is fortunate to have her services." Nathaniel cleared his throat. "Well, about that dinner invitation. I'm afraid I'll have to decline," Noah said smoothly. We're in the middle of winter preparations and there's too much work to be done. Vivian's smile tightened. Perhaps another time then. Her gaze returned to Zara. Mrs. Matthews, if you need anything in town, do let us know. We're always eager to help those in difficult circumstances. That's very kind, Zara replied, matching the woman's insincere tone perfectly. But Mr. Reid and Mrs. Finley have been most generous in providing everything we need. After a few more minutes of stilted conversation, the Andersons departed, but not before Vivian gave Noah a lingering look that made her intentions unmistakably clear. I'm sorry about that, Noah said once the wagon was out of earshot. Vivian has been trying to match me with every eligible young woman in the county since my sister died. She seems to have her own interest as well, Zara observed mildly. Noah's laugh was short and unamused. Vivian likes the idea of being Mrs. Reid more than she likes me. The Triple R is one of the largest properties in the territory, and apparently that makes me quite the catch, despite my other shortcomings. What shortcomings would those be? Zara asked, genuinely curious. Noah glanced at her, a hint of surprise in his eyes as if he hadn't expected the question. According to Willow Creek Society, I'm too serious, too devoted to the ranch, and woefully lacking in social graces. I haven't noticed any lack of grace, Zara said softly. Their eyes met for a moment, and something passed between them, a spark of connection that startled them both. Noah broke the gaze first, turning toward the house. We should get back. You'll want to settle in, and I've got work to do. But as they walked side by side across the yard, Zara felt the first stirrings of something she had thought lost forever, the possibility of beginning anew. Days at the Triple R quickly settled into a rhythm for Zara. Mornings were spent in the small office adjacent to the main house, organizing ledgers and correspondence while Ellie napped in a basket nearby. Afternoons often found her helping Mrs. Finley with household tasks or walking the grounds with Ellie, learning the layout of the ranch, and sometimes observing Noah as he worked with his men. She couldn't help but admire his leadership, firm but fair, demanding excellence but willing to demonstrate any task himself. The ranch hands respected him deeply. That much was clear from their ready compliance and the way they sought his advice. As October gave way to November, bringing colder temperatures and occasional snow flurries, Zara found herself increasingly comfortable in her new home. Ellie was thriving, growing plumper by the day, and beginning to show a distinct personality, serious like her mother, but with a ready smile that charmed everyone from gruff old Frank to Noah himself. Noah, for his part, seemed to be warming to their presence as well. He began lingering over meals, engaging Zara in conversations about books they had both read or sharing stories of his childhood on the ranch. Sometimes in the evenings, when the day's work was done, he would sit in the parlor while Zara sewed or wrote letters, Ellie sleeping peacefully in her cradle nearby. One such evening, as the first serious snowfall of the season blanketed the ranch in white, Noah surprised Zara by asking about her life before. "You don't have to tell me if you don't want to," he added quickly when she hesitated. "I know loss can be hard to talk about." Zara set aside her mending, considering her words carefully. "It's not that I mind talking about it, it's just complicated." Noah waited patiently, his steady gaze encouraging her to continue. "I grew up on a small plantation in Virginia," Zara began. "Nothing grand but comfortable. My father was a professor at William and Mary before he retired to farm. He believed in education for all his children, regardless of gender, which wasn't a popular view." "He sounds like a forward-thinking man," Noah commented. "He was," Zara agreed with a sad smile. After the war, though, things became difficult. The economy was in shambles, and many of our neighbors lost everything. We managed to hold on, but it was clear there wasn't much future there anymore. She paused, memories washing over her. "That's when I met Thomas Matthews. He was a businessman from St. Louis, visiting relatives near our farm. He was charming, well-spoken, seemed successful. When he proposed after a whirlwind courtship, my parents were relieved. They saw it as my chance at security." Noah's expression remained neutral, but his eyes were attentive. "And was it secure?" "For a while," Zara admitted. "The first year was good. We had a nice house, servants, invitations to all the best social events. I was not unhappy even if I wasn't passionately in love. Then I became pregnant with Ellie, and things began to change. She took a deep breath, still finding it painful to articulate the rapid downfall. Thomas started staying out late, coming home smelling of whiskey and perfume. Money that should have gone to household accounts disappeared. When I confronted him, he admitted he had a weakness for gambling. He promised to stop, but he didn't, Noah supplied quietly. Zara shook her head. No, if anything, it got worse after Ellie was born. He would be gone for days, then return with extravagant gifts but no money for coal or food. The final blow came when he fell ill with pneumonia after spending a night in some gambling den during a rainstorm. By the time he died, I discovered we were ruined. The house, the furniture, even my jewelry, all of it had to be sold to cover his debts. Noah's hands tightened on the arms of his chair. And no family came to your aid. My parents died within months of each other the year before, Zara explained. My brother is trying to make a new start in California. Thomas's family, well, they made it clear they blamed me for his downfall. Said I hadn't been a proper wife, hadn't kept him satisfied at home. That's ridiculous, Noah said forcefully, his indignation on her behalf warming Zara's heart. Perhaps, she acknowledged, but it left me with few options. I had a cousin who'd settled near here years ago. He'd written about his homestead, how well he was doing. It seemed like my only chance. She gave a hollow laugh. Except when I finally reached the place, I found an abandoned cabin and learned from a neighbor that cousin Edward had given up and moved on to Oregon 6 months earlier. Which is when I found you, Noah concluded. Yes, Zara said softly. I don't know what would have happened if you hadn't come along that day. Noah leaned forward, his gaze intense. You would have survived. You're stronger than you know, Zara. The use of her given name, spoken with such conviction, sent a flutter through her chest. Thank you for believing that, and thank you for listening. Any time, Noah replied, his voice gentle in a way that made Zara wonder what it might be like to be held by him again. Not out of desperation this time, but something else entirely. The thought should have alarmed her. She was still in mourning, still recovering from one man's betrayal, but instead, it settled within her like a seed taking root, small but full of potential. As winter deepened its hold on the Nebraska territory, the Triple R became a world unto itself. Deep snow made travel to town difficult, leaving the ranch's inhabitants to rely on each other's company and the stores they had laid in during the autumn months. For Zara, this isolation proved unexpectedly pleasant. Without the judgment of people like the Andersons, she felt free to find her place within the ranch's hierarchy. The Cowboys treated her with increasing respect as they recognized her contributions to the smooth running of the operation. Mrs. Finley became a surrogate mother figure, dispensing wisdom about child rearing and life in the West with equal generosity. And Noah was becoming something she couldn't quite define. Friend, certainly. Employer, technically. But there were moments, a lingering glance across the dinner table, the brush of his hand against hers as he helped her down from the wagon after a rare trip to town, the way he sometimes sang softly to Ellie when he thought Zara wasn't listening that suggested possibilities beyond those simple designations. December brought Christmas preparations, with Mrs. Finley determined that Ellie's first Christmas would be properly celebrated despite their remote location. The house was decorated with pine boughs and red ribbons, and delicious smells emanated from the kitchen at all hours as the housekeeper baked traditional treats. One evening, about a week before Christmas, Noah returned from the barn with something hidden behind his back and a slightly nervous expression on his face. I have something for you, he told Zara, who was sitting by the fire with Ellie in her lap. Well, for Ellie really, but I thought you might. That is, I hope you approve. Intrigued by his uncharacteristic hesitation, Zara smiled encouragingly. What is it? From behind his back, Noah produced a small wooden horse, exquisitely carved and polished to a warm glow. I know she's too young to play with it yet, but someday. Every child on a ranch should have a horse of their own, even if it's just a wooden one to start. Zara took the toy, running her fingers over the smooth curves and detailed features. Did you make this? Noah nodded, a hint of color touching his cheeks. I've always liked working with wood. It was something my father taught me. It's beautiful, Zara said, genuinely moved by the gift and the thought behind it. Truly, Noah, it's the finest toy I've ever seen. Relief and pleasure washed over Noah's face. There's more in the workshop. I thought I might make a small stable, perhaps some other animals, for Christmas. She'll love them, Zara assured him, looking down at Ellie, who was reaching for the wooden horse with curious fingers. Though I think she's eager to have this one right now. Noah chuckled, sitting down beside them on the sofa. She has good taste, your daughter. Our daughter has many fine qualities, Zara agreed, then froze as she realized what she had said. I mean, I know what you meant, Noah said quietly, but there was something in his eyes, a warmth, a longing that made Zara's heart beat faster. The moment was broken by Mrs. Finley entering with a tray of hot cider, but the echo of it lingered between them, unspoken but undeniable. Christmas Day dawned clear and cold, with sunlight sparkling off the snow-covered landscape. The entire ranch gathered in the main house for a celebratory dinner, with even the most taciturn cowboys donning clean shirts and attempting polite conversation. Zara, wearing a new dress that Noah had ordered from a catalog, and Mrs. Finley had secretly altered to fit her perfectly, felt a sense of belonging she had never experienced before, not in her parents' home, where duty had often overshadowed affection, and certainly not in her marriage, where appearances had masked a hollow core. After the meal, gifts were exchanged, practical items mostly, like knitted scarves and hand-tooled leather belts. As promised, Noah presented Ellie with a complete miniature ranch, including a stable, fence, and several animals, all carved with the same loving attention as the horse. Noah, this is too much, Zara protested when she saw the collection. Nothing's too much for her, Noah replied simply, his gaze moving between mother and daughter with such tenderness that Zara felt tears threaten. Her own gift to Noah was modest by comparison, a new ledger book with his initials burned into the leather cover, a skill Mrs. Finley had taught her over the past weeks. It's perfect, Noah told her, running his fingers over the embossed letters. I'll think of you every time I use it. That evening, after the celebrations had wound down and the hands had returned to their quarters, Zara found herself alone with Noah on the porch. Despite the cold, she had wanted a moment of quiet to appreciate the beauty of the snow-covered ranch under the stars, and Noah had joined her, wrapping a warm blanket around her shoulders. Happy? He asked, his breath forming clouds in the frosty air. Very, Zara answered honestly. I never expected to feel this way again. Noah turned to face her, his expression serious. And how is that, exactly? Zara met his gaze steadily, finding courage in the quiet assurance that had become her anchor over these past months. Safe, valued, like I belong somewhere. You do belong, Noah said, his voice low and intense. Here with the ranch, with everyone. The hesitation, the words he didn't say, hung between them like the crystalline breath in the cold air. Noah, Zara began, not entirely sure what she wanted to express, but feeling that something needed to be said. Before she could continue, however, the sound of approaching hoofbeats cut through the quiet night. Both turned to see a rider coming fast up the drive, his horse's flanks steaming in the cold. Noah stepped forward, instantly alert. That's Jim Larson from the next ranch over. Something's wrong. The rider pulled up sharply, his face grim in the light spilling from the house windows. Reid. We need help. Marshals forming a posse. The Carson gang hit the bank in town this afternoon, shot Nathaniel Anderson. They're headed this way, probably aiming to cross the river at the Narrows. Zara felt her blood run cold at the mention of violence. The Carson gang was notorious in the territory, ruthless outlaws who had robbed and killed their way across 3 states. Noah's face hardened. How many men does the marshal have? Not enough, Jim replied grimly. 5, maybe 6. The Carsons are 7 strong, all armed to the teeth. Without hesitation, Noah nodded. I'll bring 5 of my best men. We can be ready to ride in 20 minutes. As Jim departed to spread the word to other nearby ranches, Noah turned to Zara, his expression torn between duty and concern. You have to go, she said before he could speak, understanding the gravity of the situation. The town needs you. I don't like leaving you and Ellie, Noah admitted, already moving toward the door to alert his men. We'll be fine, Zara assured him, though fear clutched at her heart. Mrs. Finley and Frank will be here. The house is secure. Noah paused at the doorway, turning back to her with an intensity that stole her breath. I'll come back to you, I promise. And then he was gone, striding through the house calling for his foreman and most trusted hands. Within minutes, the ranch erupted into activity as men prepared horses and checked weapons. Zara watched from the porch as Noah and 5 cowboys rode out, their figures quickly swallowed by the darkness. Only then did she allow herself to acknowledge the fear that gripped her, not just for the safety of the town or the ranch, but for the man who had become the center of her world. Mrs. Finley appeared beside her, a shotgun cradled in her capable hands. Come inside, dear. No sense catching your death out here. The men know what they're doing. Does this happen often? Zara asked as she followed the housekeeper back into the warmth of the house. Outlaws, now and again, Mrs. Finley replied matter-of-factly. The territory's still wild in places. But the Carson gang, they're the worst I've seen in my time here. She patted the shotgun. Don't you worry, though. Old Frank and I know how to handle trouble if it comes calling. Zara nodded, drawing strength from the older woman's calm demeanor. I should check on Ellie. You do that, Mrs. Finley agreed. Then come help me barricade the back door, just as a precaution, mind you. The night passed in tense vigilance, with Zara unable to sleep despite Mrs. Finley's insistence that she rest. Instead, she sat by Ellie's cradle, a loaded pistol that Frank had given her on the table nearby, straining to hear any sound from outside that might indicate the men's return or danger approaching. Dawn broke with no word, and as the morning stretched toward noon, Zara's anxiety grew. What if Noah was hurt? What if he didn't come back at all? The thought of losing him, of facing life without his steady presence, was more painful than she had expected. It was nearly sunset when they finally heard riders approaching. Frank, who had been keeping watch from an upstairs window, called down, "It's our boys, they're back." Zara rushed to the door, heart pounding, scanning the group for Noah's familiar figure. She spotted him near the back, supporting another rider who appeared to be injured. Relief flooded through her, followed immediately by concern. As the men dismounted in the yard, she hurried forward. "Noah, are you hurt?" He looked up, exhaustion etched in the lines of his face, but his eyes brightening at the sight of her. "Not me. Pete took a bullet in the shoulder, but Doc says he'll be fine. We got them, Zara. All of the Carson gang either dead or in custody. And the town, Mr. Anderson, Nathaniel will recover, though it was close." The gang didn't get away with much. Jim's warning came just in time for the marshal to set up an ambush at the river crossing. Noah passed the injured cowboy to 2 others, who helped him toward the bunkhouse, where his wound could be tended. Then, as if his remaining strength was finally depleted, he swayed slightly on his feet. Without thinking, Zara stepped forward, slipping her arm around his waist to steady him. "You need rest." Noah looked down at her, something unreadable in his expression. He stopped, then started again. "I kept thinking about you and Ellie, about getting back to you both. It's what kept me going through the fight and the chase." Zara's breath caught in her throat at the naked emotion in his voice. "We're here," she said softly. "We're safe, thanks to you." Noah's arm tightened around her shoulders as they walked toward the house, neither caring that the remaining cowboys were watching with knowing smiles. Inside, Mrs. Finley took one look at Noah's exhausted state and immediately set about preparing a hot meal and bath. Ellie, awakened from her nap by the commotion, regarded Noah solemnly from Zara's arms. "Hello, little one," he said, reaching out to touch her cheek gently. "I told you I'd come back." Ellie grabbed his finger in her tiny fist and gurgled happily, as if she understood perfectly. Later that night, after Noah had eaten and bathed and changed into clean clothes, Zara found him in the parlor, staring into the fire. The events of the past day seemed to have aged him somehow, adding a gravity to his already serious demeanor. "Are you all right?" she asked, sitting beside him on the sofa. Noah was silent for a long moment before answering. "I've seen men die before. It's never easy, even when they're men like the Carsons who have brought it on themselves." He turned to look at her, his blue eyes troubled, but this time was different. This time I had so much more to lose. Zara reached for his hand, threading her fingers through his. What do you mean? I mean you, Zara. You and Ellie. Noah's voice was rough with emotion. When I found you by that creek, I thought I was just helping someone in need. I didn't expect you to become so important to me, so quickly. Zara's heart pounded in her chest as Noah continued, his words coming faster now, as if once started he couldn't stop. I know it hasn't been long. I know you're still grieving your husband and adjusting to a new life. I don't expect anything from you, but I need you to know that I care for you both deeply, more than I thought possible. Noah, Zara whispered, overwhelmed by the sincerity in his voice and the answering surge of feeling in her own heart. You don't have to say anything, he assured her quickly. I just wanted you to know. After today, after facing what could have been the end, it seemed important not to leave things unsaid. Zara studied their intertwined hands, gathering her thoughts. My marriage to Thomas wasn't based on love, she said finally. It was convenience, security on both sides. I cared for him, but I never felt for him what I. She paused, taking a deep breath. What I've begun to feel for you. Noah's grip on her hand tightened, but he remained silent, letting her continue. It frightens me, Zara admitted. How quickly you and this place have become home to us. How much I've come to depend on your strength, your kindness. What if I'm just repeating the same mistake, seeking security at the cost of truly knowing my own heart? I would never ask you to sacrifice your independence, Noah said firmly. Whatever happens between us, this ranch will always be a place where you and Ellie are welcome, where you can work and contribute and make your own way. That won't change regardless of other feelings. The sincerity in his voice eased something within Zara. This was not Thomas, promising the world without substance behind his words. This was Noah, who had proven his character through actions day after day. I believe you, she said softly. And I think I would like to see where these feelings might lead, slowly perhaps, but honestly. The smile that spread across Noah's face was like sunrise breaking over the prairie, gradual but transformative, illuminating everything in its path. Slowly, he agreed, raising their joined hands to press a gentle kiss against her knuckles. We have all the time in the world. In that moment, with the fire crackling beside them and the vast Nebraska winter keeping the rest of the world at bay, it felt perfectly true. Spring came to the Nebraska territory in fits and starts warm days followed by sudden snowfalls, muddy trails becoming passable only to be washed out by rain. But by April, the land was beginning to transform, with green shoots pushing through the soil and wildflowers dotting the meadows. Life at the Triple R had settled into a new pattern over the winter months. Zara's position had evolved from simple bookkeeper to Noah's trusted partner in managing the ranch's business affairs. Her education and quick mind proved invaluable as the operation expanded, with Noah purchasing additional grazing land and increasing his breeding stock of both cattle and horses. Ellie, now 9 months old, was crawling everywhere and pulling herself up on furniture, much to everyone's delight and occasional alarm. Her personality blossomed, daily curious and determined like her mother, with a sunny disposition that reminded Zara of Noah rather than Thomas. And Noah. Noah had been true to his word about taking things slowly. Their relationship had developed naturally over the winter months, built on mutual respect and deepening affection. Evening conversations by the fire, shared responsibilities during the day, occasional moments of privacy where hands might touch, or a brief kiss, might be exchanged, all creating a foundation stronger than anything Zara had experienced before. The town of Willow Creek had eventually learned of their growing attachment, of course. Vivian Anderson, fully recovered from the shock of her husband's injury and more determined than ever to secure a suitable match, had made her disapproval known through pointed remarks whenever Zara ventured into town. A widow with a child, working as a bookkeeper, Zara had overheard her saying to another woman at the general store. Hardly appropriate for a man of Noah Reid's standing. One wonders what sort of influence she's exerting. The words had stung, but not as deeply as they might have once. Zara had found her place, earned the respect of those whose opinions truly mattered to her. Gossip, she was learning, said more about the speaker than the subject. On a particularly fine day in late April, Noah suggested they take a picnic lunch and ride out to a spot he wanted to show her. "It's my favorite place on the ranch," he explained as they rode side by side, Ellie securely strapped to Zara's chest in a carrier Mrs. Finley had fashioned. "I go there to think when decisions need making." The trail led them through a stand of cottonwoods, then up a gentle slope to a promontory overlooking the river. From this vantage point, much of the Triple R spread out before them: the main house and outbuildings, the grazing cattle, the distant line of the horizon. "It's breathtaking," Zara said as Noah helped her dismount, careful of Ellie who was wide-eyed at the new surroundings. "My grandfather proposed to my grandmother here," Noah told her as he spread a blanket on the ground, "and my father to my mother. Family tradition says this spot has special power, that vows made here are blessed by the land itself." Zara glanced at him sharply, her heart beginning to race. "Noah." He knelt on the blanket, gesturing for her to join him, which she did after unfastening Ellie from the carrier and setting her down to explore the blanket. "I'm not trying to rush you," Noah said, his eyes earnest as they met hers. "I meant what I said about giving you time. But I wanted you to see this place, to understand what it means to my family, what you and Ellie have come to mean to me." Zara reached out to touch his face, tracing the line of his jaw with gentle fingers. "These past months have been the happiest of my life," she admitted. "You've given us so much safety, purpose, belonging. You've given just as much in return," Noah countered, catching her hand and pressing a kiss to her palm. "The ranch has come alive again since you arrived. I've come alive again." Ellie chose that moment to babble excitedly, pointing at a butterfly that had landed nearby. Both adults laughed, the tension of the moment broken by the baby's innocent delight. "She's thriving here," Zara observed, watching as Ellie attempted to crawl toward the colorful insect. "She belongs here," Noah said softly. "You both do." Zara met his gaze, seeing all the unspoken questions there. "Are you asking me something, Noah Reid?" A slow smile spread across his face. "Not yet, but soon, perhaps, if you're ready to hear it." "I think," Zara replied carefully, her own smile matching his, "that when the time comes, I'll be ready to answer." They stayed on the promontory until late afternoon, sharing the picnic lunch and watching Ellie's antics as she discovered the joys of grass and wildflowers. When they finally rode back to the ranch, something had shifted between them, an acknowledgement of the future they both wanted, even if the words hadn't been formally spoken. 2 weeks later, a letter arrived that changed everything. Zara was in the office, reviewing the accounts for the spring cattle drive, when Noah brought in the mail from town. "This one's for you," he said, handing her an envelope with unfamiliar handwriting. "Postmarks from San Francisco." Curious, Zara opened the letter, her expression changing from interest to shock as she read the contents. "What is it?" Noah asked, concern evident in his voice. "Bad news. It's from my brother, Nicholas," Zara explained, her hands trembling slightly as she held the paper. "He's been trying to find me for months. Apparently, after Thomas died, his business partner conducted a review of the company's books and discovered Thomas hadn't been entirely truthful about their financial situation." Noah frowned. "Meaning?" "Meaning there were investments that Thomas had made secretly, using company funds. Investments that actually paid off, though not in time to save him from his other debts." Zara looked up, still processing the implications. "According to Nicholas, as Thomas's widow, I'm entitled to a substantial sum, more than enough to buy a small property, establish myself independently." The silence that followed was heavy with unspoken thoughts. Finally, Noah asked quietly, "Will you go then, to San Francisco?" Zara studied his face, seeing the fear he was trying to hide, fear that she would leave, taking Ellie and a piece of his heart with her. "Nicholas has offered to handle everything through lawyers," she said slowly. "There's no need for me to travel there." She hesitated, then added, "Unless you think I should." Noah moved to kneel beside her chair, taking her hands in his. "Zara, I would never tell you what you should or shouldn't do. This money gives you choices you didn't have before. Whatever you decide, I'll support you, even if I decided to leave." She pressed, needing to be certain of his response, Pain flashed across Noah's features, but he nodded. Even then, your happiness matters more to me than my own. Zara felt tears well in her eyes at his selflessness. What if my happiness is here? What if all I want is to use this money to contribute to our future, yours, mine, and Ellie's? Hope bloomed in Noah's expression. Is that what you want? It is, Zara confirmed, her decision solidifying as she spoke the words. This place, this life we've been building, it's everything I never knew I needed. The money changes nothing except that I can now come to you as an equal, not as someone dependent on your charity. You have always been my equal, Noah said fiercely. From the moment you insisted on working for your keep despite your circumstances. But if this makes you feel more secure in your choice, then I'm glad of it. He rose, pulling her gently to her feet. In that case, Mrs. Matthews, I believe there's a certain promontory that's waiting for us. 2 days later, under a sky so blue it hurt to look at it, Noah Reid asked Zara Matthews to be his wife. They stood on the spot where generations of Reids had pledged their love, with Ellie playing contentedly at their feet and the vast Nebraska landscape spread before them like a promise. I can't offer you the refined life you knew in Virginia or St. Louis, Noah said, holding both her hands in his. The ranch is demanding, the winters harsh, the town small and sometimes narrow-minded. But I can promise you this. Every day, in every way I know how, I will show you and Ellie how deeply you are loved. Tears spilled down Zara's cheeks as she listened, not from sorrow but from overwhelming joy. I don't want refinement or ease, she told him. I want a true partnership, a home built on respect and affection. I want to watch Ellie grow strong in body and spirit, surrounded by beauty and honest work. I want you, Noah Reid, exactly as you are. When he kissed her, it felt like coming home, like the culmination of a journey that had begun in despair by a cottonwood tree and led to this moment of perfect certainty. They were married in June, with wildflowers decorating the ranch house, and the entire community gathered to witness their vows. Ellie, dressed in a gown of white lawn trimmed with lace that Mrs. Finley had spent weeks creating, charmed everyone with her attempts to repeat the word "mama" during the ceremony. Vivian Anderson attended with tight-lipped resignation, while her husband Nathaniel, still recovering from his wound but genuinely fond of Noah, offered sincere congratulations. Frank served as Noah's best man, his weathered face betraying unusual emotion as he watched the couple exchange rings. And Mrs. Finley, who had taken to calling herself Ellie's honorary grandmother, wept openly throughout, declaring afterward that she had never seen two people more perfectly suited to each other or to the life they had chosen. The years that followed proved her right. Under Noah and Zara's joint management, the Triple R prospered, expanding its operations and introducing innovative practices that other ranchers eventually adopted. The money from Thomas's investments was partly used to build a school in Willow Creek, with Zara occasionally teaching classes in literature and mathematics. Ellie grew into a confident young girl who could ride as well as any ranch hand and recite poetry with the same enthusiasm she showed for helping birth calves. She had no memory of her biological father, knowing only that Noah, the only father she had ever known, had chosen her and her mother, had held them both when they needed it most. And on cold winter nights, when the Nebraska wind howled around the sturdy ranch house, Noah would sometimes tell the story of how he had found his family a young woman crying by a creek, a baby in need of comfort, and the simple words that had changed all their lives. Let me hold you both. It was their story, woven into the larger narrative of the Triple R Ranch and the land that had brought them together, a love born of compassion, strengthened by shared purpose, and sustained by the daily choice to hold each other through whatever life might bring. As Ellie grew, so did their family. A son arrived 2 years after their marriage, James, named for Noah's father, followed by twin girls, Rebecca and Mary, who brought even more laughter and activity to the ranch house. The Triple R became known throughout the territory not just for its fine cattle and horses, but for the warm welcome extended to travelers, the fair treatment of workers, and the example set by the couple at its heart, a cowboy who had once found a crying woman with her baby, and the family they had built together, one day at a time, in the wild and beautiful Nebraska plains.